Hello, good morning, everybody. You are watching the Impact Money Show. Welcome to the show. We have an exciting show today. You're watching on your TVs on the Smart Money Culture TV network. There is a lot going on in the world today. Biden is making some last-minute moves, trying to ensure that the deep state stays the deep state. And Elon and Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy are not able to change anything. And that is the plan as well. We have just a lot going on. Of course, Russia. Tucker is in Moscow. Sorry about that. Tucker is in Moscow. All right. Let me just boom. Okay. We're not just looking at the headlines, but we're diving deep into the currents that are shaping the financial and geopolitical landscape. First, let's address the elephant in the room. The national debt has just seen an alarming increase of $84 billion in a single day. $84 billion has been added to the national debt in a single day, pushing our total debt past $36 trillion. $36 trillion. Just to give you an idea, guys, I think we don't even have $1 trillion of gold in Fort Knox. I mean, nobody really knows right now. Of course, the central banking cartel confiscated everybody's gold in 1933. They said they were going to give it back. They never gave it back. So there's a lot of gold in the Federal Reserve Bank in New York that we should take back. We should be able to confiscate that back. This is just a number. It's a reflection of the system. That's the $36 trillion, where the Federal Reserve creates money out of thin air. And we, the taxpayers, end up footing the interest bill. The questions on many's mind is whether it's time to reconsider the role of the Federal Reserve in our economy. There's a growing sentiment that this might be part of a larger plan by what some refer, as myself, as to the central banking cartel, potentially diminishing the national sovereignty for financial control. You're probably part of that. Anybody who is thinking thinks that. Of course, they have total and complete control because they control the money supply completely. They can print up whatever they want. Turning our attention to South Korea, the recent whispers of implementing martial law followed by a swift denial. Well, they did implement martial law, right, for a little bit, and then they lifted it, but that sent ripples across the Asian markets. The South Korean government promises to inject liquidity into the system in an attempt to quell the economic turbulence, but it's clear the region is on edge, with markets reflecting this uncertainty. On the international front, there's significant activity. The U.S. military operations in Syria have escalated, with Americans' warplanes now visible in the skies above, indicating a deeper involvement in the Syrian conflict, aiming to topple the Assad regime, which the Russians are backing. This move comes at a time when relations with Russia are already strained. As you probably know, Tucker Carlson is in Moscow, and this has added another layer to this complex geopolitical cake. His past interviews have highlighted dangerous brickmanship by the Biden administration, with the U.S. military actions now directly killing Russians deep inside Russia. A lot of these military pieces that we've given the Ukraine can only be operated by the United States. So it's not like we've just given them some type of arms and been like, go for it. They need us to operate them. We are directly, appears to me, directly hitting Russia, the U.S. This is particularly pungent as the Biden administration enters its final days in office. We're less than 60 days. This is like a last-minute push to assert influence, start World War III, and set the stage for future policy under a different administration. Simultaneously, the economic warfare through sanction has not cornered Russia, not only cornered Russia, but has also pushed it closer to China, accelerating moves towards de-dollarization. The BRICS countries are exploring alternatives to the US dollar, of course, their own currency, BRICS, a move that President Trump has warned could lead to further sanctions if they proceed. This economic realignment could have long-term implications for the dollar state as the world's reserve currency. Back in the U.S., the political landscape isn't any less tumultuous. The recent California House seat selection, which took nearly a month to call in favor of the Democrat, is just crazy. I mean, what about the integrity of the electoral process? The guy won, they say he won by like less than 200 votes, like 128 or 182 votes. So now we have 115 members that are in the House that are Republican, and are 115, I believe, that are Democrat, and 215 Democrat and 220 Republican. Very slim majority because a lot of those are rhinos or whatever. This severely hampers Trump's legislative agenda, particularly as the Senate has basically suffered the same fate. Very, very slim majority. You know, they don't have to take many. You know, you throw one here in Arizona, you throw one there. There's only 100 seats in the Senate. So one or two, even one seat is a big, big deal. It's a big, big deal. As we look towards the financial markets, there's a cautious optimism with the Dow futures and Bitcoin showing an upward trend. However, all eyes are on Jerome Powell, who's set to speak today. Investors are holding their breath for any indication of the direction of interest rates. An unexpected pivot from the expected rate cuts could indeed send the markets into a tailspin. In summary, we're navigating through a time where financial strategies are as much about political strategy as they are about economics. The Biden administration's actions, the looming Trump administration's challenges, and the global economic shifts are all interconnected in a way that we could redefine the global financial order. Stay tuned on the Impact Money Show as we continue to dissect these developments, offering insights into how these financial currents could impact your future. Remember, in this world, nothing happens in isolation. So, of course, the great Tucker Carlson is there in Moscow. I'm going to play, he put out a clip. I'm going to play this clip that he put out because it's worth playing. In this interview, he's going to interview Lavrov, who is the longest running like Secretary of State or whatever he is over there, I think, in the world. Lavrov. So let's listen to this.
In the weeks since we left Russia, Moscow, where we are now, in February, after interviewing Vladimir Putin, we've watched from the United States as the Biden administration has driven the U.S. ever closer to a nuclear conflict with Russia, the country that possesses the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It has accelerated ever since, and it's reached its apogee so far in the weeks after Trump's election. He is now the president-elect. In that time, just a few weeks ago, the Biden administration, American military personnel launched missiles into mainland Russia and killed at least a dozen Russian soldiers. So we are, unbeknownst to most Americans, in a hot war with Russia, an undeclared war, a war you did not vote for and that most Americans don't want, but that is ongoing. And because of that war, because of the fact that the U.S. military is killing Russians in Russia right now, we are closer to nuclear war than at any time in history, far closer than we were during the Cuban Missile Crisis. That would mean the elimination of Russia, the United States, and most of the rest of the world. We felt there must be someone behind the scenes in Washington working to make sure that this conflict doesn't become a nuclear holocaust. But we found out that no, in fact, there is nobody. Tony Blinken, the current Secretary of State, cut off all contact between the U.S. and Russian governments. There is no back channel. There is no conversation. There hasn't been for more than 2 years. That's shocking. Meanwhile, most Americans have no access to any perspective other than that granted to them by NBC News and the New York Times. They don't know how close we are. They don't know the Russian perspective. We've been trying for over a year to get that perspective out to American news consumers. We've also tried for over a year to get an interview with Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. We've attacked that from a bunch of different angles. We've spoken to a lot of different people around him, had dinner with them. We've been in talks continuously, and those efforts have been thwarted by the U.S. government. The American embassy in Kiev, which our tax dollars pay for, told the Zelensky government, no, you may not do the interview. You can talk to CNN, you can't talk to us. So we've been unable to speak to him. So we came back to Moscow yesterday to interview the foreign minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, the longest serving foreign minister in the world. He's been a part of this government for 25 years. He's been in the diplomatic corps for over 40, and ask him, where exactly are we? Are we headed toward an unprecedented conflict between Russia and the United States? Is there any way to peel Russia back from the east, from the sphere of China, back into the west? Is that alliance permanent? And does the election of Donald Trump mean an end to this war, which is reshaping the world, the U.S. economy, the global economy, and risking the life of every person on this planet? Is that possible? We just walked out of that interview. It's absolutely fascinating. It's coming very soon. We hope you'll watch.
Well, there you go. Great Carlson in Moscow. Now, most people have never been to Moscow before. I've been to Moscow. It is absolutely stunningly beautiful. Very interesting, too. It's a very Christian place. And it's very interesting because we're definitely at odds with Russia all the time, fighting Russia. And why are we always fighting Russia if they're so Christian? Very, very odd, I thought at the time. Now, of course, with my understanding of who actually runs this country and the central banking cartel and everything else, it makes a lot more sense to me. And I'm still not even able to openly talk so much about it because of the repercussions. Let's see here. Your second note was what I was looking for. Correct. 5 minutes from midnight. Kennedy, Khrushchev, and Castro all over again. Like Tucker said. Exactly, Johnny. Orthodox Christians. Yes. And Christians all the same. And it is interesting. Those aren't the people that are running the United States or the Western world. Of course, the central banking cartel is a different group, as you know. Just a lot going on. You have, of course, Biden now is, I guess, has pushed through this new deal that people are able to work from home. He wants to continue this stranglehold that the deep state has on the United States. Of course, I think Trump can just turn it around with the stroke of a pen once he's in there. I guess that remains to be seen if he'll do that. But guys, we are like 50 days out from Trump taking over. This is crazy. And then Biden, of course, also announces, and you have, of course, Blinken over there, and Blinken's just going on and on with the war. And you have Biden over, and he's like announcing another $1 billion in aid to develop African nations. Meanwhile, North Carolina is in total shambles. And, $1 billion of foreign aid, it's like the joke meme, we're going to call money laundering now foreign aid. But it's crazy because what's happening is you and I are just being ripped off. That $1 billion, it's important for people to understand that $1 billion they don't have it. It's not like they have the $1 billion. They just print up the money and give it away. They print it up, and then we get taxed on the back end through inflation. So, and to touch on the national debt deal, so we added $84 billion yesterday to the national debt. We're adding, and I talked about this at the beginning of the year as well, we're adding $1 trillion to the national debt every 100 days. So over 105 days. So over $3 trillion are being added to the national debt every year. We will never be able to pay it off. And why would we? They're not even lending us the money. They're just printing money and charging us interest on it. There is no way out of this besides closing the Federal Reserve. There is absolutely no way out. Zero. We'll never pay down the national debt. And people go, oh, the national debt. You don't really realize that, yeah, there's a cartel behind the national debt. And if the guys here in Washington don't do what they want, then there's heck to pay. Out of that 84 billion national debt, or let's not talk about that, out of, 84 billion national debt in one day. So he's making sure, Biden and the administration is making sure everybody gets their big payday, another big payday, as they head to the door. If they even go out the door, it's still hard to believe, for me to believe that it's going to happen. It's very ominous feeling here in Washington. I got to tell you, very ominous feeling. It's just odd. Very odd feeling. Of course, you have now we have the DEA guy that Trump appointed, who was a COVIDian, and arrested a pastor for having church during that whole COVID lockdown mess, has taken his name out of consideration, thank God. And that has, I can guarantee you, a lot to do with how all of us reacted. But now the defense secretary is under fire, the Trump's guy that he appointed for defense secretary. Of course, Fox lets out that he had a drinking problem. And I guess he was a Fox News contributor. They said he had alcohol on his breath a number of times, and that was enough to, now they're probably going to pick somebody else. That's what it sounds like. Of course, Matt Gaetz was another one of those, right? Oh, yeah, we were all excited about that, but no, they got rid of him. And actually, it seems his career is completely over, right? He could have still served in Congress next term. He won, but he says he's not going to. So I don't know what they got on him, but they got something. I hope it's more than just hookers. Underage girls or something like that. I could see that being a big problem. But just hookers. Let me tell you what, guys. Everybody here in Washington, D.C. is paying hookers, okay? That should not ruin somebody's career. That may be unpopular to say, but that's the truth. They're all doing it. Whether it's girls or boys, whatever their thing is, they're all doing it, okay? That should not be a career-ending thing. So I hope it was more than that. I don't hope it was more than that, and I hope it was more than that all at the same time, right? Pure pandemonium, really. Meanwhile, the markets have basically continued to shrug this off. The Korean situation is worrying because, of course, you have Rocket Man over there, and of course, the Biden administration is trying to start World War III. Obvious to me, appears obvious to me. And so to open up another front in Korea, so then you have Israel, you have Syria, I guess we can consider it all. You have, multiple countries in the Middle East. You have Eastern Europe, and then you would have Asia there too. I guess it would be South Asia. And it's a mess. Let's talk about the markets. I have the great Matt Dixon here. Sir Matt, how are you?
Hi, good morning, Bruce. How are you?
Good afternoon to you, sir. I'm doing great.
Yeah, interesting listening to everything got to say politically. It's a minefield right now, isn't it?
It's a minefield right now. I'll tell you what, if we get out of this in the next 50 days, I think probably, I guess Trump will end up getting in, although it is hard for me to see. I mean, the feeling here in DC, like I said, is just such an ominous feeling. But if he ends up getting in, it's hard to see that he's going to be able to get anything done. I mean, we're really in for some back and forth. These are unprecedented times.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just shared my screen, Bruce. Hope you can see that.
Let me add that here. Yes, sir.
Just thought I'd start back to front. We had some questions about Ondo. It's quite interesting that we
wow, right?
Yeah, absolutely wow. And it's been wow across the board pretty much, hasn't it?
Yep.
So, I mean, Ondo has been, very much wow. So we had the other day, we had basically some bearish divergence. That was, I'll just draw the line in on the RSI so you can see what I'm talking about. It was just from here to slightly down here. And you look at the corresponding price. That's when the price was right back here. Long way back at 1.618 extension. Just above that, we tipped above it. That was $1.27 for Ondo. We got a pullback, which was actually in line with this hidden bearish divergence that we got. So we got basically higher highs on price, lower highs on RSI. And you can see that the RSI fell from an overbought situation, and the RSI fell down a little bit there, and the price fell down a little bit, but it's actually a very modest pullback. So from a high of actually 130 on Ondo, with that bearish divergence, we fell all the way back to 114. So percentage terms, we're talking probably 14% pullback. So as an indicator, it is very good. But then right from mid-range on the RSI, we rose very substantially now to another strongly overbought situation. But this is no longer a divergent situation because we can now see that RSI has actually risen and prices have risen. So it's no longer divergent. So there's nothing really stopping the prices from a divergence perspective. But if we look at it from another angle, we can actually see that we have, and I'll just zoom out a little bit here. What I did, I measured the price from the low point here to this point here. So I think we've got an ABC move up. And I measured that. You can see from the bottom here to the top is 100%. And all I've done is just transpose that same measurement. You can move it anywhere. Just transpose it to the bottom of the next wave here. So I just put that back where it was. And now we can see what that takes us to. So it takes us to exactly, the price has gone to exactly 3.618. Now that isn't actually a Fibonacci number, but it is still a very, very common extension for prices to go to. And that's why it's on there as a measurement, as a 3.618. There's some measurements like the 0.5 isn't actually a Fibonacci number. This 3.618 isn't a Fibonacci number, but it's still a very, very important extension. Even 100% isn't, strictly speaking, fib number. So 1.618 is 2.618, 0.618. There's all sorts of Fibonacci numbers, but these are common extensions. So we actually extended with Ondo to precisely 3.618. So I think it's quite significant that the price went there. That's to 195. Price is currently pulled back to 180. So, a fair old percentage pullback that we've had there. And it's not absolutely clear which way it's going to go. We can potentially get more pullback. So risk reward for me isn't ideal. So we haven't got a divergence in place. So the price can potentially push higher. But we've got some other indications that maybe this is just a large ABC. So it would be what's called a flat correction, which is 3 waves up. We can see that from here. A, B, C. So that's 3 waves up, 3 waves down, A, B, C down, and then got a very powerful 5-way move up to potentially finish an ABC movement. So it could just be that one of these geopolitical tensions that you're talking about, whether it be Korea, whether it be Middle East, whether it be Russia, who knows, could be China, Taiwan. We just don't know. There's so many options on the table right now that potentially there's a correction brewing. But, you can't fight against the markets. They say that, traders say trend is your friend. And right now, very clearly, the trend is higher.
Now, so I would like to say as well, so this Ondo token, just so everybody knows as well, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it is what I heard was that the BlackRock guys, some of the former BlackRock employees are behind this one. And so I would jumping into an asset when it just had a move like that is, I would think, probably not advisable in any. It's very scary, I should say, is the way.
Yeah.
But just so everybody knows what we know about it.
Yeah. So just, I mean, if we look at it from the actual performance perspective, and surely, when it's risen so much, so just looking at the performance on the bottom right here, 1 week performance, 78%, 1 month, 193%, 3 months, 204%, and so on. So we can see all those performances year to date, 505%, and the 1 year, 505. Yeah. So it's done 5x in the year. Even in the last month, it's done pretty much 2x. So after these tremendous gains, you've got to be a little bit wary. But the thing is, crypto does tend to have a mind of its own. It's highly, highly volatile. It's very much driven by sentiment. It's not so much about true underlying value. It's more about sentiment for crypto in particular. And so it can do some crazy things. But these performance figures, some people probably are going to be looking at taking profit. So it's vulnerable at these sort of levels. And we'll just move up to HBAR, because HBAR, as you know, we've been pushing it quite a bit, saying it's an amazing opportunity, amazing token. I followed it for the past probably 3 years, actually. And it's been absolutely amazing. So again, if I just scroll down, look at the performance on HBAR, it's even more impressive. So whilst on Ondo, we saw 500% in the whole year, with HBAR, we've seen 566% in 3 months alone. Over the last month, we've actually seen 666%. So we've seen 6.6x in 1 month alone. Just in the last week, we've seen 136%. So more than, it's more than doubled your money in just the week. And we were talking about it more than a week ago, and you've doubled your money more than in that past week. So absolutely amazing. So HBAR, as I said, and I mentioned it, it really is one of my favorite tokens. And yeah, I just think it's still plenty of potential juice in the tank, but we've got to be wary after these massive price increases we've had. Just got to be a bit cautious. I'm kind of going in reverse order. Litecoin again, they're all pretty much looking exponential to the upside they've been. But again, this could also be a larger ABC correction higher. So A up there, B down here, and C to the upside. So potentially it's corrective. I'm just wary with all these geopolitical risks on the horizon that chasing prices higher is dangerous. And by all means jump in, but just be careful. Only risk what you can afford to lose, or put a stop loss in place. But even stop losses, by the way, with crypto, there's not always enough liquidity to fill your stop loss. Sometimes prices gap. And that basically, when they gap, it means that there's no actual trading happens in these intermediate gaps. And so a stop loss wouldn't be filled. So you've got to be very careful that stop losses don't guarantee your security, especially in illiquid markets. And markets can change very, very quickly. So you do need to be careful. And my best advice would probably be only risk money that you can afford to lose. Potentially.
That is a good advice as well. If you've traded long enough, you have found yourself in a situation where after the trade has settled, you owe the exchange money because there wasn't enough liquidity on there to settle where you wanted it.
Yeah, I've seen that happen even in FX when there's been some big moves. Like there was when the Swiss peg broke against the euro. A lot of companies, actually FX companies, went bust because people were positioned the wrong way and the losses were so great that they chased the people for the money. But sometimes it's more than you've actually invested. Sometimes if you're in a position, short or long position, you've got a massive gap in the market. So you just got to be careful. And as I say, safest way to do it is, as I say, just invest what you can potentially afford to lose. But you could also, don't forget, we've just seen you can do 6x, 10x.
Oh yeah, big money.
I mean, Bitcoin.
SHIB is another one. SHIB had a big move.
Absolutely,
still looking strong.
Yeah, I mean Doge as well. They've all moved. I mean, just look at Doge performance again. The year performance 356%, so 3.5x on Doge, and most of them are around those sort of figures. I think the great one that we obviously followed a bit, and we say it's very, very volatile, and you can't bet against it. And we've said that over and over again. And it was in the doldrums for ages, wasn't it? XRP was in the doldrums, stuck on 30 to 50 cents for such a long time and didn't move. All of a sudden, it just sprang out of the blocks following this Trump election. And just look at it, it's 5x now since that time, more than 5x.
Yeah, I have many friends in that 50, 60 cent mark. And man, they're so happy right now. They're so happy.
Yeah, you're talking 5x on that, which is amazing. And potentially, we don't know where it could stop. The previous all-time high was 330 something. So we're actually definitely within range of that. But we don't know. It's risen so much, 5x in a month, or less than a month even. It's in danger territory. Solana's the one that I've been following very closely, and it's gone pretty much according to plan. But we did just opening it out. So we had what I think was a wave 3 higher, and then I was expecting an ABC down. Now that ABC may have completed just a little bit earlier than I expected. It may be complete, or we may still have more to go. So I think we had an A wave down. The B wave actually could still be in the works, and then we still have a C wave down to come. I think that's probably likely. It's a real possibility. So again, quite a bit of uncertainty surrounding where we're going. I do think long term that we're still within the wave 4 correction, but we can be choppy for some time to come. But I think we still have a wave 5 to come to take us to real new all-time highs. All we've really done, as far as I'm concerned, is match the previous all-time high, which was somewhere around that 267 level. The reason I say that is it depends which exchange you're on. So, for example, I think on Coinbase, I think it did reach a new all-time high, but on Binance, it didn't reach a new all-time high, or it might be the other way around. One or the other, it did reach on one, it didn't on the other. And that just shows arbitrage opportunities, difference in pricing at the time. So we're there or thereabouts. We virtually met the previous all-time high, but I think we're going to go convincingly to new all-time highs once the correction's complete. But I think it's a little bit uncertain at the moment. We came from that 267 level. We're currently on 236, so we're $40 below that. We actually dipped in the weekend down to 215, believe it or not, and it jumped from 215 to 230, 38 or whatever, 240 even. So it jumped $25 in just a matter of hours, really. Very, very short period of time. It jumped sharply higher. So again, we'll probably do a bit of a correction. Now, it could be the correction's complete here. ABC, it could be complete, and we could push to new all-time highs straight away. But the thing is, most of the market, people now, everybody's bullish. Everybody's thinking it's alt season is in. Market's going to go straight higher. And it never goes normally the way everybody expects. It can't do. So there's going to be some shocks along the way, I believe. Bitcoin is it's actually stuck at the moment. So it's been a case of rotation again, rotation of money. So we saw the rotation out of Solana into XRP. I think we're also seeing rotation potentially out of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is being, as it were, topped up. So we're not seeing any real pullback on Bitcoin. It got to 99,000. It's now on 96,000. So 3% down. That's nothing in crypto terms. So Bitcoin is being topped up by the continual institutional interest in Bitcoin through the ETF and even government interest. So I think Bitcoin definitely has higher to go. And you can see I've got the arrow here. I think maybe we've got more to go with the correction. But then following that, I think we've definitely got new all-time highs pushing through that 100,000 barrier to give us a new all-time high for Bitcoin, I believe. But if we flip over from Bitcoin and just go to DXY, this is what has got me a little bit concerned about potentially where we're going with markets. And I've said for a long time, there's potentially something on the horizon going to happen, because I think that US dollar index here, I think we're in a effectively working in a C wave higher, which will be the completion of a large correction, a large ABC correction. I'll just scroll out here so you can see it a bit better. I'll probably scroll out even further. So you can see a big A wave higher. We've got an ABC for the B wave down, and then we're doing 5 waves up for the C wave. So this is all a big correction to the upside. So I think that dollar is going to fall off a cliff sometime next year, or maybe later this year. So I think this could be potentially that big geopolitical issue. Maybe America's involved in a bad way. I don't know. but I'm not quite sure what. Maybe we see signs of recession coming at long last. I say at long last. I mean, there's been some warning signs. Inflation's still elevated, but at the moment, growth's reasonably robust. But if that turns around and we start to see chance of recession, then we will see the dollar fall. But I think there's a big dollar fall to come, and maybe that'll be a turnaround for the risk assets. So that is the warning sign. And the one that I always look at, as I say, is the dollar yen, and the dollar yen is kind of the inverse of that dollar index. So again, I'll just scroll out a bit so we can see where we are with dollar yen. A couple of alternatives here. I think either we've got a 1, 2, 3 working on wave 4 and possibly up in wave 5. That will complete the upward movement in dollar yen. That's the most likely scenario probably at the moment. So 1, 2, 3, we'll probably finish wave 4 and pushing up on wave 5. That means basically the markets still have higher to go, because this correlates directly with markets pumping. So if that's the case, we do have higher to go on the markets. But then if we finish 5 waves up, we then get a substantial pullback. And we saw the last time we got an unwind of the carry trade, when people started to buy into the yen and sell the dollar. Effectively, that's people selling the markets and piling back into yen. That caused this dollar yen to fall. That would tell us that the markets are due for a correction once we complete this wave 5. It could be alternatively that we've got an ABC already complete to the upside. And we've already started the downside move on dollar yen. But I'm saying there's enough warning signs out there to tell me that by all means be happy, but don't let your profits melt away. You must have made, if you've been in this market, you must have made some decent profits on the way up with these cryptos. We've been saying it for long enough about the opportunities. So don't let it all just ebb away if you've made some amazing profits. If you've been XRP, I would say don't be greedy. You've got 5x on your money if you've been holding XRP. Same with Solana, same with Bitcoin, same with most of them. So if you've made money, I'd say just protect some of those gains. Don't be greedy and just go for more and more and more. I've been hearing from people in the know, and I talked to some big whales in the crypto industry. They're talking about this bull run potentially coming to an end, maybe February, maybe March. That's what I've heard. So maybe we're in for a bit more of a pump, but we may be getting towards the latter days. I mean, don't forget it's pumped from Bitcoin, 15,500 to 100,000 effectively. So on the most stable cryptocurrency asset there is, we've seen something like 7x already. Which is phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. We just had a question come in. Thinking ahead, if the dollar crashes, how do you feel about the Federal Treasury Reserve notes, T-bills, etc.? Bull or bear?
Well, it all depends really on inflation. I mean, I like the Treasury, the inflation protected T-bills. So if you get inflation protected, if we see inflation coming through, which at the moment looks like the risk, they're still going to be lowering rates just in a very short time again now. They're probably going to lower again another 25 basis points. This with the backdrop of already elevated inflation. So the risk is to higher inflation at the moment. So it all depends really where inflation's going. If we see, if they're going to continue to drop interest rates, that's usually good for T-bills, isn't it? If they're dropping interest rates, that's usually good. If they start to raise rates at some point or stop dropping rates, then that's potentially bad for Treasury bills. So obviously, as you're dropping interest rates, then if you've already got a T-bill paying a high rate of interest, then the value of that T-bill actually goes up in value as interest rates fall. So it just depends on the outlook for future interest rates. At the moment, they say they're in a reducing cycle, they're in an easing cycle, and they seem to be committed to continue to reduce rates. That's probably good for T-bills. So, yeah, I think it's probably not a bad place to be in Treasury bills right now, I don't think. And with the gains that you've had, again, maybe rotation, even between asset classes. We talk about rotation within crypto, but you're looking about where to put your money. Obviously, diversification is absolutely key always. But even then, probably you'd change the weighting within an ideal portfolio. So maybe you should, if you've made profits in risk assets, S&P is all-time high. I mean, let's just look at S&P momentarily. S&P is absolutely right at all-time high. So maybe it's time to rotate maybe from some of the profits you made in equities and rotate into treasuries. I think that there's, and then treasuries again, it's guaranteed money effectively. Even if you're buying, if you're buying now to maturity, potentially your money's safe. So they say treasuries are risk-free, don't they? So yeah, maybe it's a good time to rotate into treasuries, especially there's a lot of room to reduce interest rates, by the way. We're still quite high historically on interest rates. They say they're in an interest rate reducing cycle, so maybe it's a good time to rotate into treasuries and follow what the experts are doing in terms of rotation. You need to try to obviously not put all your eggs in one basket, but it does make sense. I'm seeing, by the way, even as we speak, we're seeing cryptos correcting a little bit downwards. And as I say, potentially, I think we're going to see more choppiness before we push to further all-time highs. So I think now is just a great time to look at protecting some of those profits. The only thing we are seeing pumping a little bit is oil. We've seen oil pump a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's surely a reflection of the geopolitical tensions you talked about earlier in the show.
Indeed.
And as I said, my big call, I made a couple of big calls, I guess, has been oil, although a lot of people are negative oil. And even when oil went negative, by the way, when it actually went to negative pricing, that was the time to jump in. A lot of people are negative oil right now, but if we get geopolitical tensions, it will go through the roof. I think oil is a good bet right now, personally. So I've said oil, we've said treasuries, a couple of other things we mentioned I mentioned about pound. Yeah, I think pound against dollar. So even if we see dollar weaken massively, I also think the pound will weaken more. So, and euro also. So I actually see pound and euro. I wouldn't say yen, so I wouldn't bet against the dollar using. I wouldn't bet against against the yen, but I would bet against the pound and the euro. So there's a couple of kind of long-term calls that I think we need to.
Well, it's interesting too how the Korean situation I think will play into it. South Korea basically said yesterday they're going to push as much liquidity as needed into the market. I think that's one of the things that's pushing the market a bit today. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they're all pushing liquidity into the market to keep things afloat, and it seems to be the craze. It's almost like the way they deal with problems is just pump liquidity in. But as you say, liquidity is just debt. Effectively, they're creating debt, and surely long term, this has got to be inflationary.
We need a better way so people understand it. It's basically just taxing you ahead of time and taking money from you and pushing into the market.
Yeah. So I was looking at various cryptos as I'm looking around about. But yeah, you're right. It's that's a risk in itself about pumping liquidity. Whenever there's a problem, they just think the solution is pump liquidity in. Well, yeah, but surely it's going to be paid for at some point down the line, and it will. So that's why at some point the dollar will weaken. Let's see. At the moment, I think we just need to be. I keep urging caution. I think after all the gains that we've had, again, I would urge caution. Some people would say you're missing out on gains if you're cautious, but if you've made gains, potentially, I think it's time to be happy, take some profits, maybe move into treasuries. Maybe now's the time. People wonder, where do you put your money for safety? Well, surely it is treasuries. Treasuries are seen as risk-free, so that's probably the best place to put your money.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, talking about rotation, just finally, again, the one that hasn't been rotated into as yet, probably one of the many that we look at is Ethereum. Ethereum hasn't pumped yet. My personal feeling is Ethereum, to a large extent, has had its day. There are other tokens now that do what Ethereum does better, faster, cheaper, makes more sense. And Ethereum was obviously, everything was built on Ethereum once upon a time. That has been changing and changing. So I do think potentially Ethereum's had its day, but I know some of those crypto whales have said that with rotation happening, we rotated, as I say, from Solana into XRP. Maybe we'll rotate from XRP into Ethereum possibly, but it's not one of my favorite choices. But
I will say that a lot of the financial guys that I know around here are going big on Ethereum, bigger than I would have thought, because we're in it, and so we're like, there's a lot of other chains that do this better, and but yeah, I see a lot of these guys going big on Ethereum. So for that reason, I do think we could be.
Yeah, if the pump continues, as I say, some of the whales I've been talking to are saying that the pump will continue until February, March time. If that's the case, then I don't have any doubt that if it continues to pump, maybe Ethereum will get a major push. So I wouldn't bet against it, certainly. And again, just part of diversification, maybe you should hold something in Ethereum, but again, not more than you can afford to lose. I guess finally, we'll just close the day on looking at gold. It's gone very much according to expectations. So we had this 5 waves down to give us the A wave. And again, it's very typical with gold that the 5th wave was the extended wave. That's so often the case with commodities and especially gold. Normally with most assets, it's the 3rd wave that's the extended one. But here with gold, the common theme for gold is that the 5th wave is extended. That's precisely what happened. Then we got the B wave up. Again, we actually labeled that in advance of the move. And it moved, you can see, very, very close to our expectation. And then we're moving down, I think, in a C wave. So potentially a bit more downside to come with gold. But then I think following that, we'll push once again to new all-time highs again with gold. So I'm not negative. Right now, though, there's no particular divergence in place. So if you looked at from this peak to this peak, the actual RSI is also declining as well. So there's no particular divergence in place at the moment. We had divergence right at the top, and that told us to sell. But right now, we don't have any particular divergence in place. Again, from this peak to here, there's no divergence because we've also got aligning, declining RSI. So right now, there's no divergence signals. So for me, there's no particular trade to be had. We're kind of mid-range, middle of the road. I wouldn't look to buy or sell. I'd wait. If I'm looking to buy gold, I'd probably wait for lower prices potentially. Look to buy the C wave. I wouldn't look to sell it either, even though I think potentially it's got further to come down. So I'd keep my powder dry and wait for further opportunity, potentially to buy at a lower price for gold. And I think that's probably good advice across the board with a lot of the assets right now. Prices are pumped so much. It's probably good to just remain patient, wait potentially for lower prices, and then look for to jump in maybe at better prices in the near future. So that's pretty much it for today, Bruce. So
Great.
What day? We're already Wednesday, aren't we? Yeah.
Are we already Wednesday? You're right. We're already Wednesday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure, Matt.
Yeah. Pleasure for me too. Thanks for listening. Thanks, everybody. Catch up tomorrow.
Cheers.
All the best.
The great Matt Dixon with the Market Watch Report. Of course, I've had this banner up here, the 2-Bit Exchange. I have a commercial I've been putting together, but I have been a bit busy with my doing a play. I'm doing the Christmas Carol with my daughters, and I think I need to charge up my lights as well. I seem to have low lights, don't I? I'll have that fixed by tomorrow. Thank you, Matt. Great wisdom. I'll tell you what, it is a pleasure to work with Matt, Johnny. I've been working with him, made a lot of money with Matt over the years, and I have a lot of respect for his insight into the market. I remember being years ago and had a bit of money and I wanted to invest it, and I was looking at different people to in order to where to put it. And I met some people and they said, oh, this person and this guy's going to give you great returns and this guy's this and this guy's that. And when my friend told me, he says, look, Bruce, this guy, he makes you money, but most importantly, he doesn't ever lose your money. He doesn't lose your money. And it's very important, obviously, not to lose the money. And when you've been trading for as long as Matt has, and you've lost the money at least once or twice, you a lot of times you trade. You use that wisdom. Obviously, you can't buy experience, right? You can't buy experience. So I love doing the show with him. And guys, we are expanding a lot. I know I have multiple different things that we're doing, but we're adding a lot of new stations, a lot of new states. So that's something that you want to be involved with. We welcome that. You can reach out to me at Networks Manager on Twitter, or of course on my phone, Now we're not looking for, your last $100,000 or anything like that. Okay. But if you have an extra 100,000 or more that you think you may want to get involved in a TV network that is expanding across 30 different states, 100 channels. We're going to have a lot of influence, a lot more influence, growing a lot. So if you want to be involved with that, that's my number right there. You can reach out to me as well. You can find me on X at Networks Manager. It's good to follow me there. I used to say it's not for the faint of heart if you follow me, but I'm a lot easier than I used to be, I guess. I'm a lot of, I don't know. You know how it is. I wanted to talk a little bit about my friends Dalgo and P-Gold. Dalgo and P-Gold, because these guys have just been absolutely doing so well. Of course, if you've been watching, Algorand has made some major moves. Algorand pushed up from 8 cents down a little bit today, down a bit today, but Algorand pushed up from 8 cents to 60 cents in a few months. Absolutely wonderful. I hear you, Johnny. I hear you, brother. For now, wait until Doggy, I still call it Doggy, goes to $10. Ha! Then we'll be styling, right? Woo. Algorand still at 52 cents. 52,222. Of course, had a nice spike up above 60 cents yesterday, so it's about 10% down today. But Dalgo and P-Gold, I've talked about these guys quite a bit because I like for you guys to have a good way in and a good way out. Nice, man. I'm just chatting here. I'm not going to spread his stuff there. So Dalgo and P-Gold, right? So Dalgo is the meme coin that was started by Polka Gold. This has the locked liquidity. I always talk about him because I like for you guys to have a good way in and a good way out. So they've now built an app on this, launched the Tap app. This is one of the reasons, and I was one of the first to call this, I think. This is one of the reasons why Algorand has been pumping so hard, is because of Dalgo and P-Gold. And this app, this game that they've made, is pushing all kinds of transactions through the Algorand network. And of course, transactions is what you guys all want. So just to give you a little bit of background, it's P-Gold, Polka. Let me just Google it here. Polka Gold. There we are. So here we are. Polka Gold, the reserve digital commodity for Polkadot. So this was started by Algorand and Polkadot Whales. And what they did was they took a bunch of Algorand and they locked it in liquidity pools and they burned it. So they locked it, they burned it, they can never take it out. And then they launched it. They launched Polka Gold with that locked liquidity, and they just put all of the coins on the DEX. So you had to buy it. There was no team tokens or anything like that. Everybody had to buy it. And then they just let this baby run. And it is very impressive. P-Gold is a revolutionary digital commodity that synergizes the Algorand and the Polkadot communities to create the most fairly distributed asset in crypto. Polka Gold emerges as a digital parallel to traditional gold, encapsulating trust and reliability in the digital age. Limited to Genesis production of only 10 million coins, Polka Gold is designed to uphold the principles of scarcity and non-inflation, available now on Tinyman. Very easy to buy. You're going to want to get some Algorand for that, okay? Full disclosure, this is not financial advice. I get paid to do this stuff, but I am long on these assets as well, okay? Don't, as like Matt just said, don't ever risk anything more than you can lose, okay? But we are 3x from the bottom. maybe even more. I think for both of them. So then, what the Polka Gold community did, and about the time I became involved, was maybe I became involved a little bit before it, was then they took over 10% of the Polka Gold supply and they locked it, the same thing. They locked and burned it into the Dalgo. And then they launched their meme coin. And this meme coin is basically their advertising arm of the company. The leaders are anonymous as well. Of course, the community did Dalgo, but whoever started the P Gold remained anonymous, which is also nice. Dalgo, our mission is to make crypto accessible, fun, and fair for everyone. We aim to break barriers, spread smiles, and build a thriving community. Dive into the world of Dalgo, where fun meets finance and memes collide with blockchain. El Dalgo isn't just any meme frog. He's a savvy amphibian, hopping into the future of digital currency powered by Polka Gold liquidity and built on the Algorand blockchain. Dalgo blends humor with cutting-edge tech. I'm a big fan, and I'm long on them. Check them out. Polka Gold and Dalgo. That is it for our show this morning. It is always a pleasure, guys. We love doing the show. And especially as we are growing, a lot of it has to do with influence. It has to do with influence. And that's one of the things, we've been doing the show almost for a year now, almost for an entire year. And we'll have our year anniversary coming soon. And it has been it's a great thing. Yeah, man, you too, Johnny. The Christmas Carol has been fun. I've been doing these plays now with my daughters. I've done 3 of them now. I got hooked with Annie. And then, so that's kind of our thing now. We do the plays. It's pretty funny. It's fun. Have a great 2-day, Johnny. A great day as well. It's always a pleasure, guys. Let me get my little jingle up here. We also need to perform. I was going to perform my song, The Rothschild's Tax, at Art Basel, but of course I can't because we're doing the Christmas Carol. We'll be Christmas Carol and family first, right? Family first. Cheers, guys. We'll be back on your TVs at 11 a.m. Texas time, and we'll be streaming again tomorrow. Cheers.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.